Beloved soul, take a peaceful moment for yourself right now. Breathe slowly and deeply. Release the tension you have been carrying and settle fully into this space. Because what is being placed before your eyes today was not brought to you through random chance. Heaven itself has guided your steps toward this message at this exact moment in your life. Something powerful is shifting around you right now. It may feel quiet on the surface, almost impossible to notice with your physical eyes. Yet the angels are making it clear that what is unfolding beneath the surface carries far greater weight and power than anything you can currently understand. If you want the full truth about what really happens when you finally stop chasing, hit like right now. You did not fight. You did not beg. You did not send one last desperate message attempting to explain yourself or prove where you stood. You simply stopped. You stopped chasing, and you stopped pouring your precious energy into someone who had become completely comfortable receiving it without returning the same energy to you. And beloved, within that one quiet and courageous decision, something ancient and deeply divine was set into motion that you may not yet completely understand. The person who once felt completely certain of your presence is now standing within an unfamiliar silence they were never prepared to experience. The warmth you offered so freely, the attention you gave so consistently day after day, and the emotional availability you provided without hesitation, all of it has now been withdrawn. They can feel that withdrawal, not as an argument, not as a confrontation, and not through unnecessary drama, but through absolute absence. Absence, beloved, carries a form of spiritual and emotional power that human words could never recreate or produce. Right now, whether you are able to see it clearly or not, they are thinking deeply. They are questioning themselves and experiencing emotions they never expected, because, for the first time, they are encountering you without your effort, constantly holding everything together between you. That single reality changes everything about the dynamic that once existed. When you stop chasing someone, the transformation that takes place is not always loud or dramatic, but it is profoundly real on both a spiritual and psychological level. Before this moment, the connection between you was being maintained almost entirely through your continuous effort, your messages, your emotional availability, and your willingness to consistently show up. All of that energy was flowing steadily in their direction, creating a one-sided momentum that kept the connection moving forward. That momentum placed them in a position of spiritual and emotional comfort that they never had to examine or question. They did not have to make definite decisions about what they truly wanted. They did not have to examine their feelings with genuine honesty, and they did not have to completely confront what they sincerely desired from this connection. Why? Because your energy was filling every empty space and answering every question before the question could even fully develop inside them. God designed the human heart to seek, pursue, and make authentic choices. But when one person is doing all the seeking and all the pursuing for both people, the other person is deprived of the very process that creates authentic and lasting commitment. They were existing within the connection without contributing in equal measure. A connection sustained by only one person is not a covenant. It is simply a convenience. Comment the word "stopped" if you finally stopped chasing and felt the shift within yourself. The moment you stopped, the entire dynamic began to change. It was not because you created drama or forced a painful confrontation, but because you withdrew the energy that had been holding an unhealthy imbalance in place. An imbalance that was never designed to continue forever. What once felt stable and predictable to them now feels uncertain and unfamiliar. The human spirit, exactly as God designed it, becomes deeply uncomfortable with uncertainty when something meaningful appears to be genuinely at risk. Proverbs 4:23 tells us that above everything else, we are to guard our hearts, because everything we do flows directly from within us. Beloved, when you stopped chasing, you began protecting your heart. And through that act, heaven began doing what only heaven can do. It began revealing the truth. The truth is that before your silence, their attention was almost entirely passive. They received your energy without ever feeling a true need to return anything in equal measure. They became fully confident that your constant effort would always close whatever distance appeared between you. Your predictability had become their comfort zone, a familiar constant in their life that they never needed to question. But now, your absence has transformed their attention from passive to active, and for the first time, they are noticing the empty space. This is not coincidence, beloved. It is divine design. The human mind naturally becomes accustomed to whatever is consistently available, but it is awakened the moment that familiar presence is suddenly withdrawn. Your silence has interrupted their expectations, creating an open space where quiet questions are beginning to appear. They are replaying old conversations, reconsidering past moments, and wondering whether something fundamental has changed, as God uses this broken certainty to awaken something within them that complacency had allowed to fall asleep. 1 Corinthians 14:33 reminds us that God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. The confusion they are now experiencing was created by the imbalance they permitted to exist. By chasing them for such a long time, you were carrying a burden that was never yours to carry. Now your stillness has made that imbalance impossible to ignore. The connection suddenly requires an investment and initiative from them that feels deeply uncomfortable. Your attention was like a mirror, reflecting their importance without requiring them to earn that reflection. Now that the mirror has disappeared, they must confront the stark reality of what they took for granted. As Psalm 37:23 says, "The steps of a good person are ordered by the Lord." Your step towards stillness was ordered by God, so that the truth could finally be revealed. Heaven is using your decision to stop chasing to bring forth powerful spiritual revelations, beginning with the exposure of the imbalance. When you were continuously giving everything, the unequal nature of the connection remained hidden beneath the weight of your constant effort. Now the truth has been placed completely in the open. They are being forced to recognize how little they actually contributed, how frequently you were the one reaching out, and how much emotional labor you carried almost entirely by yourself. This produces an honesty that is necessary for genuine healing. Furthermore, your silence creates a stillness in which buried emotions can rise to the surface more clearly. They are now being given the space to sit with their own thoughts and confront what they genuinely feel about you. Feelings that were previously covered by routine, comfort, distraction, or certainty can no longer hide as easily. Finally, this creates the ultimate test of initiative. The responsibility for moving the connection forward now rests upon their shoulders, and whatever choice they make will reveal something about their true character. Because someone who genuinely values your presence will not simply allow the silence to continue forever. When a person recognizes that something meaningful is slipping away, they eventually have to decide whether they are willing to step forward, take responsibility, and demonstrate through action what their words may have failed to communicate. And this is where your greatest transformation begins, beloved soul. You are no longer standing at the door, waiting for someone to decide whether you are worthy of being chosen. You are no longer measuring your value according to the frequency of their messages, the warmth of their attention, or the amount of effort they decide to offer. You have stepped away from the position of constantly proving yourself, and that shift changes the entire spiritual atmosphere surrounding this connection. There is a powerful difference between loving someone and chasing someone. Love can be patient, compassionate, and sincere. Chasing, however, often comes from fear that if you stop trying, everything will disappear. But what God has destined for you does not require you to destroy your peace just to keep it alive. What is truly meant to remain in your life will not require you to endlessly abandon yourself in order to preserve it. Your stillness is not weakness. Your silence is not defeat. Your decision to stop pursuing someone who refuses to meet you halfway is not a sign that you have stopped caring. It can be a sign that you have finally begun caring about yourself as deeply as you cared about them. And something remarkable happens when you reach that point. Your energy begins returning to you. The emotional space that was previously occupied by wondering where they were, what they were thinking, why they were distant, and whether they would finally respond, begins to become available for your own healing. You begin hearing your own thoughts again. You begin recognizing your own desires again. You begin remembering who you were before you became so focused on receiving validation from another person. That is why this moment carries such significance. Heaven is not merely changing how they perceive you. Heaven is changing how you perceive yourself. The person who once believed you would always be there may now begin wondering whether they misjudged your heart. They may begin asking themselves why you became quiet. They may look back at moments they previously dismissed and suddenly recognize their importance. They may remember the patience you showed, the conversations you initiated, the understanding you offered, and the ways you repeatedly attempted to maintain peace. But remember this, beloved, their realization is not the purpose of your healing. Their reaction is not the measure of your progress. Their decision is not the source of your worth. You stopped chasing because your soul reached a point where continuing in the same direction was costing you too much peace. You stopped because something within you finally understood that mutual connection cannot be forced. You stopped because you realized that genuine love requires two people who are willing to participate. And now, whatever happens next will reveal the truth more clearly than endless explanations ever could. If they return, watch their actions rather than simply listening to their words. If they reach out, notice whether their effort is consistent rather than temporary. If they suddenly become more attentive, ask whether the change is rooted in genuine understanding or merely fear of losing access to you. And if they do not return, understand that their silence may also be an answer that protects you from continuing to invest in something that was never capable of giving you what your heart deserved. Either way, you win your truth. Because when you stop chasing, you stop controlling the outcome. You allow people to reveal themselves. You allow circumstances to speak. You allow God to separate what is genuine from what was merely comfortable. This is the deeper meaning behind your silence. It is not about manipulating someone into missing you. It is not about playing games or pretending not to care. It is about stepping out of an unhealthy pattern and allowing reality to exist without your constant effort covering it. And beloved, reality has a way of speaking loudly when you stop interrupting it with endless effort. The person who truly values you will eventually feel the difference between having your presence and having your absence. They will understand that your attention was never something they were entitled to receive without effort. They will recognize that your kindness was a gift, not an obligation. They will realize that your availability was never guaranteed. But more importantly, you will realize it too. You will understand that your love is valuable, your time is valuable, your emotional energy is valuable, your presence is valuable. And you do not have to repeatedly place those gifts into the hands of someone who refuses to recognize their worth. So continue walking forward with peace. Do not rush back simply because the silence becomes uncomfortable. Do not break your own boundary because loneliness temporarily whispers that you should return to what hurt you. Do not confuse familiarity with destiny. Sometimes God creates distance not because the connection has no meaning, but because the distance reveals what closeness was hiding. Sometimes the silence is not punishment, it is preparation. Sometimes the unanswered message is not rejection, it is redirection. And sometimes stopping is the exact moment when you finally begin moving toward the life that was waiting for you all along. Trust the process, beloved soul. Trust the stillness. Trust what is being revealed. Most importantly, trust God enough to believe that you do not have to chase what is truly meant to find you. Your story is not ending because you stopped pursuing someone. Your story may finally be beginning because you chose yourself. And if this message found you at exactly the moment you needed it, take it as a gentle reminder that you are allowed to rest. You are allowed to breathe. You are allowed to stop proving. You are allowed to let someone else demonstrate their intentions through action. You have carried enough. Now let heaven carry what you can no longer carry alone. And watch what becomes visible when you finally stop chasing. The fourth way is through the revealing of emotional and spiritual maturity. Not everyone responds to absence in exactly the same manner, and the way a person reacts to your silence reveals the real depth of their emotional and spiritual maturity in a way that very little else can. A person who is genuinely capable of real covenant love will not respond defensively when you withdraw. They will sit with the discomfort that your absence creates. They will honestly examine their own behavior instead of retreating behind pride. They will ask themselves difficult questions and have the courage to face answers they may not want to hear. But a person who has not yet reached emotional maturity will resist this entire process. They may distance themselves even more in order to protect their fragile sense of pride. They may attempt to convince themselves that the connection was never as meaningful as it seemed when you were fully present. They may simply wait for you to come back and repeat your old patterns instead of rising to meet the moment with the courage that genuine growth requires. Their response, beloved, becomes one of the clearest signs heaven can place before you about whether this person is truly prepared for the kind of deep, meaningful love God is leading you toward in this season of your life. The fifth way is through the revealing of their genuine feelings. Your constant presence may have been sustaining emotions within them that were partly kept alive through your energy, your attention, and your effort, rather than through any genuine and independent depth of feeling on their side. But your absence removes that outside influence completely. What remains is the honest truth of what they actually feel about you, independent of everything you may or may not be doing. If their feelings for you are truly genuine, the absence of your presence can cause those feelings to become stronger. They will begin missing you, not simply as a comfortable habit or familiar convenience, but as a particular and irreplaceable person. They will begin to understand what your presence truly meant in their life in ways they never took enough time to recognize before. But if their feelings were shallow, if they were being sustained primarily by the comfort of your availability, rather than by a sincere and meaningful connection, that truth will also become visible through the silence. Either outcome, beloved, is a genuine gift. Truth, even when it is difficult to accept, will always be better than a comforting illusion that keeps you attached to a place where you were never meant to stay. The sixth way is through the activation of spiritual clarity within you. Beloved, this is something the angels want you to hold very close within your spirit. The silence you have chosen is not only affecting them, it is also transforming something within you in ways that are equally important. It is creating room for God to speak directly to your spirit, without the constant noise of emotional striving, worry, and overthinking that may have occupied that space for such a long time. When you stop sending all of your energy outward towards someone who is not meeting you where you are, that energy begins returning back to you. God can use that returned energy to restore what has quietly been drained over time, to sharpen your spiritual discernment, and to prepare your heart for what is genuinely coming into your life. Isaiah 30:15 reminds us that in returning and rest is our salvation, and in quietness and trust is our strength. Your silence is your strength, beloved. It always has been, even during those difficult moments when waiting made you question whether your silence was doing anything at all. The seventh way is through the removal of what is not covenant. If this person is not truly meant for you, if this connection has not been ordained by God as a genuine covenant between two lives, then your silence will eventually make that truth impossible to ignore. This revelation does not have to come through an argument, a confrontation, or unnecessary pain. It can happen through natural divine revelation. What is not meant to remain will gradually fall away beneath the honest weight of your withdrawal. A door that closes, beloved, is never necessarily God's punishment for something you did or something you failed to do. It can be God's loving protection over everything that still lies ahead of you. What leaves your life in order to create space for something greater is not always a loss. Sometimes it is active preparation for the real thing that is still making its way toward you. When your energy changes and the pursuit finally comes to an end, the person on the other side may enter a season of emotional and spiritual unsettledness. Even if they carefully maintain a calm and composed appearance in front of everyone around them, the angels want you to understand what that inner unsettledness can genuinely look like, because recognizing it may protect you from misunderstanding what is quietly unfolding in the space between you. The first reaction they experience is rarely something completely clear or direct. Instead, it often arrives as a mixture of confusion, increasing curiosity, and a subtle anxiety that slowly develops underneath the surface of their normal daily life. Confusion is often where everything begins. They had become accustomed to a particular emotional and spiritual rhythm between you, a predictable pattern in which your energy was consistently present and repeatedly moving in their direction. That rhythm may have created a sense of stability within them, even if they were never fully aware of it and never truly expressed gratitude for it. When that stability suddenly disappears, their spirit may struggle to return to a comfortable place. They begin asking themselves questions that seem to have no immediate answers. They wonder why this change happened. They question what created this sudden shift. They may ask whether it was something they said or something they did, whether something changed within you, or whether something has changed within themselves. The questions continue, moving in circles without finding any firm place to land. And that constant internal movement can create a level of discomfort that becomes increasingly difficult to dismiss. What happens after the silence has settled and genuine reflection has begun is not determined only by the circumstances themselves. It is determined by the inner condition of the person now facing those circumstances. Your absence creates an empty space, but what that space eventually produces depends greatly on the emotional and spiritual maturity of the person experiencing it. Comment the word Jung if Jung's wisdom is hitting differently for you today. A person with genuine emotional and spiritual maturity does not simply react impulsively to the discomfort created by your absence. They pause. They look inward instead of constantly searching outward for answers. They become curious not only about you, but also about themselves and their own behavior within the connection. When they feel the weight of this change, they do not immediately rush to assign blame or create a convenient explanation that protects their pride and allows them to remain completely innocent. Instead, they begin examining the part they played in the way everything unfolded. They begin asking themselves how much they genuinely contributed, how honestly they communicated what they felt and what they wanted, and how clearly they pursued the things that truly mattered to them while the opportunity was still there. They begin looking at the moments when they could have spoken but remained silent, the moments when they could have acted but hesitated, and the moments when they may have taken your presence for granted. They begin realizing that your absence is not simply an empty space where your attention used to be. It becomes a mirror. And in that mirror, they are forced to see parts of themselves that your constant presence may have allowed them to avoid. This is where emotional maturity becomes visible. Someone who truly values the connection will not only miss you, they will begin questioning who they were within the connection and whether they showed up in the way they should have. They will think about the things they left unsaid and the opportunities they allowed to pass by. They may revisit conversations in their mind and notice details they previously ignored. They may remember moments when you were giving more than they were giving back. They may finally understand that the comfort of knowing you would always be there allowed them to delay decisions they should have made much earlier.